Welcome to the Small Business Community Network podcast, your connection to the small business community. Visit us online at www.sbcncanada.org and find out how we can help your business grow. We're proudly supported by TELUS, the future is friendly, and by Prime Information Security, because business is risky enough.
Hi everyone, it's Linda Ockel-Jenner here again today with another SBCN Small Biz podcast, and we have a returning SBCN member and successful business owner, Chris Davis, Polarverse IT Services, coming back again to share some awesome information with us. And today I believe, Chris, you're going to be talking about the cloud up in the sky and how it can help us, and maybe cloud storage today we're going to be starting off with.
Well, I think maybe I'll take away the myth that it's called the cloud, but there's nothing up in the cloud.
Really? It's not?
Yeah. We're not going to fly up in a plane and no one's going to take your data up in the cloud.
I guess from a blonde, I'm blonde, I often get a bit dipsy. I think, is it just a server that's you pay for somewhere in the world, and basically you store your information on there? So do you know why they called it the cloud? Is it just another great name that people came up with, you know?
I forget how it came about, but I mean, it's basically like all the machines kind of connect through a center point in the internet, and I think that somewhere someone made a drawing that looks like a cloud to describe that bubble.
Yeah.
And and then there's satellite connections and things like that, so in the sky and that sort of thing.
So it's a very good name.
But the internet and the cloud are basically synonymous. Like if you say you have internet storage versus cloud storage, it's the same thing. It just depends on, I think, what generation you're from.
That's awesome, Chris. You've explained it really well, better than I could. But also for the businesses out there, including us, who may be looking at our branding, or if we're coming up with something new, there is a lot to a name, isn't there, really? And people do cling to the new names and the new things. They go, oh, well, we want a bit of that, we want a piece of that. So whoever invented it is very clever. So I'm going to leave you to talk a little bit about this fantastic thing. And let's start at the very beginning, like you suggested.
Okay. There are many services out in the cloud, but today I'm just going to focus on storage because that's where a lot of businesses start. They want to be able to access their data no matter where they are. So the best way to do that is to put it into a cloud storage service. And there's many products out there, like I'm sure everyone's heard of Dropbox, Google Drive, SkyDrive. There's all kinds of ones out there, but you got to really make sure that it's designed from a business perspective and not for the consumer. And then you've got other considerations, like does your data need to stay in Canada, or does it matter where it's going to be stored? Because that's like medical profession, for instance, that data has to stay in Canada. It can't be stored.
Oh, wow, I didn't even think
in the US.
I didn't even think of this question. Now, why, if it's okay to ask, why does some data have to stay, say, in Canada? Why is that important?
Well, it's an industry standard, and there's part of it's from privacy and that sort of thing. And then if your data is stored in, say, the U.S., then you're subject to their laws as far as accessing that data. So if they want, if a U.S. company wanted to access data in Canada, they'd have to go through our legal system in order to get access to that data.
Okay.
So
that's good.
So it's very important from that aspect because, if you've got it in your home country, you understand the laws and what is allowed and what's not, right? But if it's stored in another country, you're kind of at their mercy of whatever their legal system is.
So I guess the first thing for us to do is ask questions. If we're not as educated in this issue, ask the questions, or say, I want it to be in Canada, I want it to be in the States, I want it to be, I don't really care where it is. But so ask the questions. That's the best thing. Okay, thanks,
Yeah, that's one of the probably the very first things that I tell people, is that it will be stored in Canada. To me, that's a very important piece of it. But you have to kind of do your due diligence when you're selecting cloud storage. Like there's a myth that a lot of people fall into is they think because it's in the cloud that means, oh, it's backed up, I don't have to worry about it and that sort of thing. But where that becomes a problem is that you're relying on big companies like Microsoft, Google, Dropbox, to name a couple, to restore your data, and they may not make those services available to you. Like it might be just for their protection. Like if their servers go down, they'll restore everything. But if it's like, say you got an employee that was disgruntled and left and decided I'm going to delete all my files, they may not help you restore that. So you need to understand what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. And from my point of view as an IT support, I say you should be looking after your own backups. And there are tools out there where you can back up cloud storage. A lot of them also work on the premise that they're doing a sync, so you have a local copy and you have a cloud copy. So when you're actually working, you're working off your local copy, but it's constantly syncing to that cloud storage to keep it up to date.
Okay. That's another interesting point that I didn't think about, because I do know about backup, because as you know, my husband and business partner Dave is very into this kind of thing, so I know about backing up, but you've
heard a lot of it from me.
Yeah, you're awesome. I just said basically I didn't think that it would be kind of not so much my responsibility, but I didn't think I'd have to worry about that in the cloud. As you say, I thought it would be their responsibility, but that's another good point to make. Thank you so much. I would never have thought about that.
Like a lot of the services have versioning where if you delete a file or maybe you made a mistake and messed up the file, you can usually yourself go and restore a previous version of it, which is helpful, but it's not really a true backup in the sense either, because it's not like you can say, I want to do a point-in-time backup, I want to put everything back the way it was a week ago or something like that. A lot of them don't have those options.
Well, that's really, really good to know. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. So far, that's two important things, things we should ask, questions we should ask before we just go diving in. I think I ask more questions when I'm buying my shoes, because I'm a shoe girl. I love shoes. Seriously?
I guess it's like buying shoes. There's a lot of questions, I guess. I just see if it fits when I'm buying a shoe, and that's all I care about.
That's because you're a man. And also, what about when you buy an automobile, when you buy a car, do we tend to ask more questions about that than we would our private information, our data in the cloud? Yeah. It's a really good point, Chris. Thanks for pointing that out. So what else?
I guess because things like data, and it's not tangible stuff, physical, that you can pick it up, right? Like when you're looking at something like a car, that you can physically see things. So I think that's a good point. But also, I still think down to the basics, we don't know what we don't know. So unless if you're not here educating us, how do we know what we don't know? And to be honest, I mean, maybe the really big names that you've mentioned that offer these services will, say, well, do you need this? Do you need that? Do you need the other? Do you know this? But a lot of companies might not ask us the questions or tell us what we don't know. They usually don't. They'll usually just give you a spec sheet and say, this is all your features and services. And unless you ask questions, you usually don't.
So you're educating us, and this will be super duper, because then, we can say to people, ask the questions. You are the person in the driving seat. Any other gems for us today before you have to dash off to your next appointment?
Well, I got kind of a few points that I just want to make sure that people are considering when they are looking to move to cloud storage. And the first one is the usability. You want to look at, why do you want it to be in the cloud? Is it going to do everything that you're expecting it to? And do you want employees, say, to be able to work on the same file at the same time? Some cloud storage services give you that ability. Some don't. Some need another piece of software in order to do that. So that's something to consider. And then the big one is what's called bandwidth. This is your internet speed.
Oh yeah.
If you're going to be doing a lot of cloud kind of storage, is your internet connection good enough to handle it? Is it going to keep it up to date in a timely manner?
Okay.
And on the positive side of that, though, if you have everything in the cloud, it's cutting down on email attachments, because you can send links to files instead of attaching the whole file to an email.
That's a good point. But I mean, is the cost based on, how much, how many, how how many times? Is it a set cost, or does it depend on the contracts you take out?
It's usually based on your storage size, like on how much space you need. So, like on a per gigabyte to per megabyte basis is usually how it's priced with most companies. But storage has become very cheap, so you usually can get a good sized amount of storage. And for a small business, most times the basic is all you need. That's good to know, yeah. But it's easy to find out how much file space you're using, like in your current environment, and then the reseller can give you a quote from there.
That's another good point.
I am posting as I thought I mentioned in my social networks. I'm sharing an article this morning that's called Cloud Data Protection. It's scheduled to go around 11 o'clock this morning. So if people do a search, that's a really good article on protecting your data once it's in the cloud.
Okay, and we'll, if you like, we can add a link to the podcast page on the SBCN website, and people can then access it that way if that works for you too.
Yeah, I'll forward you a link to probably the one that's in LinkedIn.
I appreciate it, because I love to listen to you, and you do educate me, but I like to see maybe the article as well, so I can reassess it, read it, and see if I've ticked off my points. That's another. You are very, very good at chatting to us here for the podcast. You explain it beautifully. Also, very, very good, with the written word, with the articles. They're becoming very popular. Is this in any way giving you a chance to reach out to even more clients, even, get even more exposure? Is this a good thing for you, Chris, that you're doing all these things?
It is starting to come back. Like I was actually out of town the last couple of days at a couple of events, and actually some people recognize me from my posts because my picture is almost on every post.
Yeah, I love your branding. No, it's great, and you've got a great smile.
I feel like I'm a mini celebrity when I'm out at some of these events and people recognize me.
That's what I want people. I want people to do what you're doing, because we are in charge of our brand. It's our personal brand, and I'm seeing you everywhere. I'm seeing the posts everywhere online. I'm sharing the podcast, and people are beginning to recognize you. So if they emulate what you're doing, they will also get a lot more exposure. So you're very, very wise. You did touch on this morning that you've been burning the candle at both ends. So that it is important to know, though, that however successful and busy we become, we have to recognise that, and you've recognised it. So I guess you'll do your best to have a restful weekend and re-energise. Fingers crossed. You have a family.
I'm actually hiring a part-timer to help with some of my marketing stuff. So
well, thank goodness for that, Chris, because we don't want to be losing you when you sleep all day. We never. But it is important. You've been in business how many years did you say, Chris? It's a long time.
Since 2004.
Yep,
when I went off on my own.
Yeah, and you get to this point where you've got to think about your family, you've got to think about your health. So I think that's awesome that you're hiring someone to take away some of that stress. Do you have one last thing to leave with us before I let you dash off?
Just selecting your cloud storage, you talk to an expert and like an independent expert, not just the vendor.
Yeah, sure because their best interest, so they're not as really.
Yeah, anybody can contact me through my website or through social networks. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Well,
we do have your information on the website page. So listen, you've given some really good points today, but I think the biggest one for me, I was joking, I know I'm blonde, but I know, when I fly off on my holidays on Monday, I know I'm not going to see all this cloud storage up there in the sky.
Yeah, you're not going to hit anybody's server while you're up in the plane.
But again, it's a really good thing to know that where the storage is located, where the cloud storage of the data is going to be located, which country is it important to your organization, the privacy, the different rules and regulations, the security, all those things. I'm guessing we'll be touching on a lot more our next podcast, so you'll kind of fill some of those blanks that people have. So thank you again, Chris. We'll add the information to the website, podcast information. And thank you. Your information's invaluable, and I love chatting with you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
You have an awesome day. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.